Transform 2020 participants, thank you for tuning into Evolven session. Change is the root of all evil. We have Mike Sanders, our Vice President of Customer Success, who's going to be diving into this hot topic with us today, and also showing us how Evolven and AppDynamics together are redefining change observability and monitoring for the enterprise cloud. So Mike, thank you so much for being with us today, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thank you for having us today. And what we really want to do is we want to talk about the partnership between AppDynamics and Evolven and the power that these two tools bring to an operational problems that we are still having in the world. Now, around Evolven, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be talking about change, right? Change is the root of all evil. And what does that really mean for us, right? Well, if we take a look at it, we've been doing this for 20, 30 years. Change is still the thing that really causes a lot of our issues. It's not that change is ever going to go away. In fact, change is actually continuing to grow and be more rapid, but it's the ability to understand and know and have the visibility into that change. And basically, as you can see, Gartner states that most of our problems that we run into are traced back to change, 85% of our incidents. And some people say that's even a lot higher. And that change is happening throughout our entire environment, right? Whether it is from our development, through our testing, through our UAT, into our actual execution, and into our actual production. Change happens, it's always there. And it's how we actually manage that, right? We have a lot of tools and we have a lot of processes around planning and executing it, but the problem is how do we actually monitor the impact of that change whenever we get into the production or into our DR sites? Because we're still asking those questions. So the other big thing that's going on outside of just that change, which we have to deal with every day, it's inevitable, is too many times our IT operations are very focused on symptoms. And if we think about it, if we look at it, right, we see the stuff that we see. That's the symptoms, that's the tree, that's the leaves, all that stuff. But the problem is it's very difficult to get down to the roots, and that is where the cause of that issue is. And that's something that we really want to take a look at today is how can we help IT operations with AppDynamics and Evolven to actually get out of just looking at symptoms and trying to guess what the issue is and actually get down to that root cause, which is actually causing our problem. So with today's speed of change, as we talked about, right, change isn't going away. There's two questions we must answer constantly in IT operations. And the first one is, what's wrong? What's the health of my application? When and where did this actually start happening? What's the impact? What's going on? Can I get a trace file to show me exactly where we think it is, right? We want to get from the hayfield down to the haystack, down to that little spot where we think the problem is. But when we're in these war rooms, we're still hearing the same question, what changed? And these are things like, well, it worked on Friday, what happened over the weekend because it's not working on Monday? It works over here, but not here, right? We tested it and now we put it into production, it doesn't work. What did we actually do? Can somebody go look at a ServiceNow ticket or a service desk ticket to see what we changed over the weekend? Hey, we don't have any tickets. Did somebody change something we don't know about? These questions are constantly still coming up. So let's just talk about Evolven first. How do we help with these two big parallel issues that are going on, right? What's going on and what's changed? Well, Evolven is actually, that's what we do. We monitor actual change end to end. We have the ability to correlate not only with AppDynamics, but other tools to be able to help not only AppDynamics, Evolven in this identification process, but to help the IT operations teams by having other analytical data. And then Evolven's biggest power of this is our patented machine learning change analytics. Is how do we get from a lot of change down to a very actionable insight? So let's take a look at these three pillars very quickly. First and foremost is our ability to look at all changes. Whether you're in a traditional data center legacy type of an environment, or even if you're in a cloud environment, whether it's brownfield or greenfield, we're able to monitor all of these at a very granular level. We kind of talking about the enterprise monitoring ability of Evolven. That means if we walk in and you're saying, hey, we're still running on an old legacy type of a platform, but we're moving through brownfield and greenfield, can you stay with us? The answer is Evolven can, because we're actually be able to look at all types of changes throughout all of those environments. At the same time, we're talking today about AppDynamics and Evolven's integration partnership. But the key here is Evolven actually has integrations into other aspects of the IT operations platform. For example, we are in the CI/CD pipeline processes. It helps to be able to get out better code, to get out better applications before we actually get to production. On the flip side, we also are helping with things around change management. So if you are a ServiceNow or a other service desk type of a product, we actually are able to take that context and be able to actually look at it from that perspective. So now if you think about it, when we get to talking about our AppDynamics integration around problem management and incident management, all this contextual data helps us help the AppDynamics troubleshooting process. And then a lot of times we get asked this big question, which is, hey, Mike, how do you guys take all of these changes? Because on a release weekend, we could have 20,000, 50,000, 100,000 changes. How do you guys handle that? Well, it is a part of our patent, and we have multiple patents being able to get us down to what we call an actionable insight. And that is, we start off with noise reduction. It's out of the box, it's automatic. And basically what that does is it says we know change is going to happen, but how can we get it reduced down to where we could start doing correlation? Because once we start doing that correlation, then we could start to say, oh, this change was a part of this type of a bucket, and this one over here does this. And then the next thing we do is we add in our algorithms, our analytics around risk calculation. What that is actually doing is it's bringing in what we call relevance. That relevance is basically nothing more than simply saying, hey, this changed over here, but it's low risk because it's normal. It's something that you normally do, and it doesn't look like it's a high risk probable impact. But this one over here has a very high risk score based on our calculation tree. And then ultimately in the end, we get you down to that insights. And I always tell people whenever I do application triaging is, let's start with the highest probability. And that's what we mean by insights. Insights basically mean is, hey, let's start here. We started with 10,000 changes, but we got you down to these 20. These are the 20 you really need to look at. And that's how what we talk about relevance. All right, so remember this question. This is where we kind of started, right? What's wrong? What's changed? How are we solving this problem? How is AppDynamics and Evolven coming together as a partner to be able to answer this ultimate IT ops issue? Well, AppDynamics does that left side. They do it very well, right? They are telling us what's wrong. They are finding the key events and the alerts. They're telling us the transaction topology and the breakdown. Hey, we can see that you have a CPU in a stuck state at this location. But then we always still have that question, well, what changed? What's causing that? Because it wasn't doing it last night. And that's where Evolven is actually coming in, and we're saying, okay, hey guys, we have the changes, we have the differences, and we can help you. Combine the two and you get something very, very powerful. And that is an actionable insight as to what AppDynamics is seeing is what's wrong, what Evolven is seeing has changed. Put the two together and we can zoom in on that true root cause, and we're no longer looking at symptoms. This is the power of the partnership between AppDynamics and Evolven. This is where a lot of our customers are actually saying, hey, how fast can we get this integration going? Because this would help us with our IT operational processes. So what I'd like to do now is I'd actually like to take a look at this live with a live demo. And let me show you how Evolven can find the changes, and then we'll bring in AppDynamics, and we'll show you how the partnership can get you to root cause very quickly. Okay, so now that we've brought up Evolven, let me actually walk you through a demo just using Evolven, and then we're going to bring AppDynamics in and show you a couple real quick use cases. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to come out here, and our scenario is this. We have a colleague who's just walked up, and something's happened over the weekend that they're getting some intermittent problems on an on-demand loans application. They have used AppDynamics to do some troubleshooting because we're not integrated yet, and they've come to us thinking that there's some firewall settings that may have changed over the weekend. They don't want to go look at every firewall settings. There's thousands of them on these 4 servers. It'll take them forever. So they're just going to ask Evolven that real simple question is, hey, could you guys come in here and actually go to on-demand loans and actually tell me if we had any firewall changes that's actually happened in over the weekend. So that's what we're going to do is we're going to come in here and we're going to select this. We're going to ask for the last 7 days. And then what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to set this up real quick of how I actually like to do a lot of my troubleshooting. I always start with what I call my heat chart, and that's that upper left-hand corner. And why that's important is this is actually where my changes have actually happened. It's a very quick visual way in which we can look at it. Even to the point if I click, you can see how that actually changes our filtering. And this is very important because this is going to be our starting point for troubleshooting. The other big thing, as you can see over to our right-hand side, we have one of our patents, which is our ability to actually group changes into buckets. And there's a couple of things that we call slice and dice filtering that we utilize. The first one is artifacts. Artifacts is the what, where I have the where to my left. This is my what. What's changed? Jar fires, firewall settings, hot fixes, things like that. The other big one that we use is impact area. This is our knowledge base on our machine learning around being able to say these types of changes can cause these types of issues. So if you're looking for a functionality or performance issue, you might actually start there and just click on that bucket. So let's solve that problem that we were asked about with our colleague. He said, hey, I need to know, do we have any windows? And as we can see, our filtering over to the right has changed. And by the way, we can see we do have a firewall bucket. And in 2 clicks, I can say, yes, we had 3 changes over the weekend in our firewall settings. I'm looking at 4 servers. Here's the other power of what Evolven does. We automatically benchmark what the other servers are set to. So we can see that these changes have changed from to true, but the other ones are set to false. That's what that red box means. It's an inconsistency between 4 servers. The other really cool thing is we have value history. Value history is very critical because we can see that on February 9th, this was set to fall like the other 3 servers. So now I can ask my colleague, is this about the time we start seeing those issues? And he can or she can say, yes, that is exactly the time. So now what we've been able to do is we've been able to identify this, and we could come up here and just download a report, send it off to the team, and actually go ahead and get that resolved. So that's a great example of how we use Evolven standalone. Right now, AppDynamics may have been the indicator. The colleague came over and asked us this question, and we manually went through this process to try to find that issue. So what happens when we actually bring AppDynamics into play and we have an event going on? How can we use AppDynamics data to actually make our troubleshooting process faster and quicker and less manual? So what we're going to do is we're actually going to do just that. We're going to come in here and we're going to pull down AppDynamics, and we're going to actually start with this authorized loan. It is now taking more than 15 seconds. Our indicator is this is a significant increase. It used to take less than 2 seconds. And now what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit next. And here's the power of the tool. This is actually AppDynamics sending their analytical data, their operational intelligence into Evolven. And what we're going to do is we're going to overlay our change analytics and operational intelligence over that to come up with a probability. By the way, the power of the tool. At the same time, we also have a ServiceNow incident that's being reported that is tied to that AppDynamics alert. So now we have a 3 or a triangle approach using AppDynamics, ServiceNow, and Evolven. We've got that ability. That's why the power of us being able to have those other integrations helps AppDynamics and helps Evolven. So now when we say go, here's what's happening. Evolven's actually done its analytics to come up with its 4 highest probable causes of the issue. So let's run through these, right? As an engineer, this is a lot easier for me to troubleshoot, and I can actually start to find out what my root cause and not worry about symptoms. So right off the bat, we can see we have 2 log levels that were changed. Okay, somebody forgot to change them back. It happens when you're in a maintenance window, somebody may change some log settings and they forget to change them back. It's probably not causing the biggest issue, right? It will cause some performance issues, but we do know that we need to change it back because we will fill up a drive space if we don't. So we maybe set that back. We don't really see that much of an impact. The real issue is actually this one right here. As an engineer, I would start here, right? What we can see is our connection timeout was decreased to 250 milliseconds. No application is really going to run at a 250 millisecond timeout. So what's really neat is, remember what I showed you on that last one, is we are able to look at the other Tomcat server that is not having the issue. And we can see that the connection timeout is actually set to 2000, which is actually 20 seconds. So now what we can see basically is we can also run the value history, and we can see that very quickly is that that connection timeout used to be set to 20,000 just like the other server. So basically what we've got here now is this is really what's causing our issue. This is supposed to be set to 20,000, and unfortunately it was set improperly. So that's probably our issue. And if we set that back to that 20-second connection timeout, we will immediately most of our performance, because a 250-second timeout won't work. We need to change that back to 20 seconds. Now let's just say, for sake of argument, that we don't get completely all the way back. Let's maybe say we get 80%, 85%, maybe 90%. This happens a lot where we actually chasing symptoms. What we end up doing is we end up saying, uh-oh, we got it back to a good state, but what happened is we didn't actually get all the way back. Maybe there was one other change that happened parallel that's also causing performance issues. And that might be the stored procedure that we also see here. Now, how many of us have ever had a suspicion of a stored procedure change that causes an upstream impact problem? I know I have. When I ran operations, I used to go to my DBAs and I'd say, hey, did you guys change any stored procedures? Because we're feeling something upstream right now that we weren't feeling overnight. And they'll say, no, we didn't make any changes to any stored procedures that could be doing that. The problem is we really don't have the ability to go in and look at stored procedures. And even if we did, they're really hard to try to find a very minor difference in some of these stored procedures. But with Evolven, we now have that ability. A single click, I'm actually comparing the before and after of a stored procedure, and I can see that option recompile has been added. So now I could go back to the DBA very quickly and say, hey, could we remove that to see if maybe that's also causing a minor performance issue? And maybe that gets us all the way back to the current state. So that is a great example of how we can use the AppDynamics data and be able to get to root cause very quickly with the AppDynamics data and Evolven's data coming in to give us actionable insights. Now, I'm not done. I want to show you one more, because we always get asked that ultimate question. Well, Mike, we're moving to things like Kubernetes, and all this new generational architecture. How does that work? Can you guys work with AppDynamics around maybe, say, a Kubernetes type of environment? So I want to show you that one just really quick before we wrap this up. And we'll go down the same exact path. And what we'll do is, now this time we're actually going to take a look at this Java heap space issue that we're getting from our alert. So we're going to do this, and we're going to come on in here. And Evolven is doing the same thing. It's taking the data that it's picking up from AppDynamics. And what it's going to do is we're going to overlay what we know around change to see if we can find out if there's any services issues that's happened in our Kubernetes environments. And immediately we can see two that's come out. Now, as an engineer, here's what's really cool. If you notice, because we're part of those pipeline processes, we also know the deployment projects. And we can see that 2 deployment projects pushed out 2 different types of changes. So what does that mean? Well, here's what really happened. Somebody actually came in here and changed this value from 1024 to 128. So I don't know what they were doing. And I maybe could go back and look and read some change records to find out, were they really reducing this to 128, or were they trying to increase this and actually did a fat finger? Either way, it doesn't matter. They made a change to our memory, and then what happened is another team or another project pushed out a new service, credit card loans. The combination of those two is what shut us down. It wasn't just the memory reduction, and it wasn't just a credit card loan being added into as a service. It was the combination of those two that actually caused this issue. So I'm going to kind of wrap it up. Again, I want to thank you for allowing us to show you the integration between AppDynamics and Evolven, because this is the power of the tool. This is where we actually get a lot of operational teams coming to us and saying, can you guys go ahead and integrate this, because we need this in our workflows. Again, thank you for this opportunity. I hope this has been very enlightening. Please reach out to your AppDynamics sales reps or your Evolven sales reps, and let's get this conversation started. We would love to be able to come in there. If you currently have both products, we can do the integration right away. If you only have one, if you have Evolven or AppDynamics, we'd like to be able to come in and do a POC and show you how that integration would actually work. Have a great day, and I hope this was worth your while. And again, Evolven wants to thank you for inviting us to this conference.